You're sprawled on a gold-trimmed bed that smells like rancid beef fat and gangrene. The royal surgeons hover with bone saws and worried eyes, arguing about whether to lance your leg ulcer again or just amputate the whole thing. You glare at them over a mound of velvet pillows. You are Henry VIII, King of England, Lord of Ireland, Defender of the Faith, except you ditch the Pope, so that last title feels like a cosmic joke. Your pulse pounds in your temples like cathedral bells. Somewhere beyond the bed curtains, a choir rehearses Te Deum. They're drowning out the screams you're trying not to make. You order more wine. You order the windows shut. You order everyone to stop looking at you like a dying walrus. Rewind 55 years. You pop into existence on 28th June 1491, the second son of King Henry VII. Second sons are royal insurance policies. Nice to have, not meant to rule. Your big brother Arthur gets Latin tutors, jousting lessons, and a Spanish bride. You get hand-me-down armor and a lifelong chip on your shoulder. At age 4, you can recite the Lord's Prayer in 3 languages. At age 6, you can shoot an arrow farther than most grown men. At age 8, you discover that applause is better than oxygen. When Arthur dies of sweating sickness at 16, the kingdom gasped. You don't. You're too busy trying on his crown when no one's looking. Suddenly, you're the heir, the golden boy, the Tudor Renaissance poster child. Tall, broad-shouldered, copper hair blazing like a bonfire. Think athletic Michelangelo statue with a mischievous grin. Europe notices. So does your father. He pads the treasury, pinches every groat, and keeps you on a tight leash. The message is clear. Don't ruin my dynasty. Dad dies in 1509, leaving you the throne, a bulging war chest, and an arranged marriage to Arthur's widow, Catherine of Aragon. She's 5 years older, devout, speaks better Latin than most priests, and can debate theology until dawn. You like her spirit. You like her dowry more. The wedding feast lasts 2 days. The bedchamber ceremony lasts 1 night. The political alliance is supposed to last forever. Year 1 of marriage, bliss. Year 5, still bliss, plus tournaments, palaces, and enough feasts to make Rome blush. Year 10, 6 pregnancies, 1 living daughter, 0 sons. Your courtiers start whispering. Maybe it's Catherine's fault. Maybe it's yours. You joust harder, pray louder, and flirt with every lady in waiting because Ego Bomb comes in silk skirts. Enter Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, your political sorcerer. He builds you armies, treaties, and the magnificent Hampton Court. He also foots the bill by milking every legal loophole in Christendom. You love him like a second father, right up until he can't get the Pope to annul your marriage. Turns out Catherine's nephew is Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Divorce Catherine, and you're poking the biggest imperial bear in Europe. The Pope stalls. You fume. Wolsey sweats. Heads are about to roll. Literally. Enter Anne Boleyn, the sharp-tongued, six-fingered comet who can make court poets forget their own names. She refuses to be your mistress. She demands a crown. You love a challenge almost as much as you love yourself. To marry Anne, you need to nuke 20 centuries of Catholic precedent. You consult scholars, bribe theologians, and decide God actually wants you in charge of English religion. Convenient. Parliament passes the Act of Supremacy, declaring you supreme head of the Church of England. Translation: you can annul your own marriage like ripping a page from a ledger. Wolsey dies en route to trial for treason. Lucky him, Sir Thomas More, brilliant humanist and professional buzzkill, refuses your new order and loses his head, proving that friendship has an expiration date when power's involved. January 1533. Secret wedding with Anne. Surprise, she's already pregnant. September. She gives birth to Elizabeth, a healthy red-haired daughter, not a son. You fake a smile that cracks at the edges. Anne's wit, once intoxicating, now cuts too close. She mocks your poetry. She tells you maybe God prefers daughters. You tell her maybe God prefers queens who produce heirs. Meanwhile, your chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, is dissolving monasteries like they're pop-up shops blocking his view. Gold chalices, tapestries, land, everything flows into your coffers. You spend it on palaces, cannons, and masks, where you dress as Hercules. Humility isn't your brand. Anne miscarries 3 times. Courtiers mumble about witchcraft, adultery, incest, anything that ends with Anne's pretty head on a block and your freedom restored. Cromwell orchestrates a trial so fast, the ink is still wet when the verdict comes in. 19 May, 1536, Anne ascends the scaffold, prays in flawless French, and dies in one sword stroke. You're hunting 3 miles away, wearing white for luck. 10 days later, you marry Jane Seymour, a bland, butter-wouldn't-melt lady with milkmaid cheeks. She promises obedience and, more important, sons. October 1537. Edward is born. You nearly break your arm patting yourself on the back. 11 days later, Jane dies of puerperal fever. Grief slams you like a runaway cart. You order her buried in Windsor, the only wife who will share your tomb. Moral of the story, give Henry a son, get permanent real estate. You stay single for 2 whole years, which for you is basically monkhood. Waistline expands, leg injury from a 1536 jousting fall festers. Mood swings widen. You need a new alliance and a distraction from the smell of your own leg. Cromwell suggests a German princess, Anne of Cleves. You send painter Hans Holbein to capture her likeness. The portrait is a Renaissance Instagram filter. Soft lighting, 0 texture. January 1540. Anne arrives. You rush to her chambers, disguise yourself as a courtier for a romantic surprise. She doesn't recognize you, greets you with polite indifference, and laughs when someone explains the ruse. Your ego cracks like thin ice. On the wedding night, you can't, rise to the occasion. You nickname her the Flanders Mare. 6 months later, the marriage is annulled on grounds of non-consummation and her pre-contract with some random duke. Anne walks away with a fat settlement and a new title, the King's Beloved Sister, which is Tudor code for thanks for not making this messy. Cromwell, who arranged the whole German debacle, loses favor faster than a plate of cold eels. Parliament accuses him of treason and heresy. He's beheaded on the same day you marry wife number 5. Catherine Howard, Anne's teenage cousin, a giggling songbird who calls you my rose without a thorn. You're 49. She's maybe 17. Midlife crisis achieved. Catherine loves music, dancing, and men her own age. Her past includes flings with her music teacher and a handsome courtier named Francis Derham. Your spymaster digs up the gossip. Catherine's ladies squeal under interrogation. Love letters surface between Catherine and Thomas Culpeper, one of your own gentlemen. Your heart turns to stone, then shatters, then boils. 13th February 1542. Catherine trudges to the scaffold on Tower Green, begs pardon, and dies with one clean stroke. You ban music at court for months. No one dares mention roses. You marry wife number 6, Catherine Parr, in 1543. She's 31, twice widowed, and smarter than your entire Privy Council. She nurses your ulcerated leg, manages your fractious children, Mary, Elizabeth, Edward, and argues theology in the gardens. When conservative bishops accuse her of heresy, she diffuses the plot by pretending to be your humble student in matters spiritual. You swallow the flattery like honeyed wine and call off the arrest warrant. Par 1. Royal ego. 0. Politically, England's a bar fight and a windmill. You swing between expensive wars in France and uneasy truces with Scotland. You mint new coins so debased in silver that bakers weigh them like suspicious mushrooms. The monasteries are gone, Latin Mass replaced by English liturgy, and half your nobles have grown rich, slicing church lands like roast boar. You've turned England from papal playground into a snarling sovereign state, and you've fed the treasury, then drained it, then fed it again. Your armor no longer buckles. The once athletic frame is now a 300-pound lava cake of gout, ulcers, and maybe untreated syphilis. Historians debate, your groin doesn't. You roll to chapel in a mechanical lift hoisted by servants who grunt under good King Hal's sheer mass. You still write love lyrics, but they read like ransom notes from a man held hostage by his own body. 1546. Paranoia sets up permanent residence in your skull. You sign death warrants between meals, convinced everyone's plotting. You call Elizabeth that girl because she reminds you of Anne. You call Mary my daughter in spite of Rome and hope she forgets the decade you labeled her illegitimate. Edward is your sunbeam, but he's 9, thin as a reed, and coughs like a sick sparrow. Dynasty feels fragile. You rewrite the succession 3 times before breakfast, which brings us back to the bed, the leg, the surgeons. You're 55, old by Tudor standards, though it feels older when fire and brimstone pulse behind your kneecap. Archbishop Cranmer stands by the bed, ready to absolve you if you'd please stop cursing. You mumble that you're not dying, just resting. You repeat it until you almost believe it. But on 28th January, 1547, just past midnight, your heart finally declares independence. The courtiers whisper code phrase, "Whose turn is it to play cards?" and scurry to lock down the palace. You leave behind 3 children by 3 different mothers, a fractured Christendom, and a legend distilled to 6 wives and 1 catchy rhyme. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. They'll remember the tyranny, the feasts, the musical talents no one dared criticize. They'll paint you obese and brooding in Holbein's pose, feet apart, fists on hips, eyes challenging an entire world to tell you no. 5 centuries later, they're still debating whether you were a monster, a modernizer, or just a man who mistook desire for destiny. Here's the secret. You were all 3, and none of them was enough. That's why it sucks to be Henry VIII.